I called a family dinner to discuss my will. My DIL was smiling too much. Suddenly, my grandson hugged me and whispered, "Grandma, Mommy put the diamond necklace in your purse to call the police." I froze. I secretly moved it to her bag. 10 minutes later, I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. I should have known something was wrong the moment Brixton smiled at me. Not her usual tight-lipped, polite expression she reserved for family gatherings, but a genuine, almost excited smile that made my stomach twist with unease. In 8 years of marriage to my son Colin, I'd never seen her look at me like that, as if she was genuinely happy to see me. The dining room felt different that evening, too. The mahogany table I'd inherited from my mother gleamed under the crystal chandelier, set for 4 with my best china, the kind I only used for special occasions. Fresh white roses from my garden sat in the center, their sweet fragrance mixing with the scent of the roast beef I'd spent all afternoon preparing. Everything looked perfect, almost too perfect, like a stage set waiting for a performance. "Norma, you look absolutely radiant tonight," Brixton gushed as she kissed my cheek, her perfume heavy and cloying. She was wearing a new dress, something expensive in deep burgundy that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. Her blonde hair was styled in loose waves, and her makeup was flawless, as if she'd just stepped out of a magazine. Colin followed behind her, looking tired from his architecture firm's latest project. At 36, he still had his father's gentle brown eyes, and that way of running his hand through his hair when he was stressed. He gave me a quick hug, distracted as usual these days. "Thanks for dinner, Mom. You know how much I appreciate you doing this." But it was Tommy who caught my attention. My 12-year-old grandson hung back by the doorway, his dark eyes darting between his parents and me with an expression far too serious for someone his age. He clutched his sketchpad against his chest, the one he carried everywhere, always drawing, always watching. Something about his posture made my grandmother instincts prickle. "Tommy, sweetheart, come give Grandma a hug," I called, opening my arms. He approached slowly, and when he wrapped his thin arms around me, I felt him trembling slightly. "Hi, Grandma," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Are you feeling all right, honey?" I asked, pulling back to study his pale face. "He's just tired," Brixton answered quickly, her hand landing possessively on Tommy's shoulder. "He had soccer practice after school, didn't you, baby?" Tommy nodded, but his eyes met mine for just a second, and I saw something there that made my breath catch. Fear. My grandson was afraid, and I had no idea why. "Well, let's sit down before everything gets cold," I said, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed 7 times, its familiar sound usually comforting but somehow ominous tonight. Colin pulled out Brixton's chair with exaggerated chivalry, something he'd started doing more often lately, as if he was trying too hard to prove he was a good husband. She settled herself gracefully, that strange smile never leaving her face as she surveyed the table. "This all looks absolutely wonderful, Norma," she said, her voice dripping with sweetness. "You've really outdone yourself, and I just love what you've done with your hair. That silver color is so distinguished." I touched my hair self-consciously. I'd stopped dyeing it brown 6 months ago, finally embracing the silver that came with being 63. Brixton had made several cutting remarks about it before, calling it giving up, and suggesting I maintain myself better. Tonight's compliment felt as genuine as a politician's campaign promise. "Thank you," I replied carefully, taking my seat at the head of the table. Tommy sat to my right, still clutching his sketchpad, while Colin and Brixton faced us from across the polished wood surface. As I began carving the roast, Brixton launched into animated chatter about her day shopping at the high-end boutiques downtown. She'd bought new curtains for their living room, spent $300 on a throw pillow she claimed was absolutely essential, and gotten her nails done at that expensive salon she frequented. The casual way she mentioned spending money that would cover my groceries for a month made me grip the carving knife a little tighter. And then I stopped by that little jewelry shop on 5th Street, she continued, her eyes gleaming. They had the most exquisite diamond necklace in the window. $15,000, but completely worth it. The craftsmanship was just incredible. My hand stilled on the carving knife. $15,000. That was more than half of what I lived on in a year from my teaching pension. That's quite expensive, I managed to say. Oh, but Norma, you of all people should understand quality jewelry, Brixton said, her gaze dropping to the simple pearl earrings I wore. After all, you have that gorgeous diamond necklace your mother left you, the one worth about the same amount. You should wear it more often. Something cold settled in my stomach. I rarely talked about my mother's necklace, kept it locked in my jewelry box upstairs. How did Brixton know its value? I'd never had it appraised in front of her, never even worn it when she was around. The piece was too precious, too tied to memories of my mother's gentle hands fastening it around my neck when I was young. How do you know what it's worth? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Brixton's smile flickered for just a moment. Oh, Colin mentioned it once. Didn't you, honey? Colin looked up from his plate, confusion crossing his features. I don't remember talking about Mom's jewelry. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I could hear the tick of the grandfather clock, the soft clink of Tommy's fork against his plate as he pushed food around without eating. Something was definitely wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Speaking of jewelry, Brixton said brightly, as if the awkward moment hadn't happened. Norma, I noticed you're not carrying your usual purse tonight. That lovely black leather one you always use. I glanced toward the living room where I'd left my everyday purse, a practical brown bag that had seen better days. I thought I'd use the nicer one tonight, I said. The black one you mentioned is upstairs. Oh, you should definitely use the black one, Brixton insisted. It goes so much better with your outfit. Plus, didn't you say it has better compartments? More organized? The suggestion felt oddly insistent, and I found myself wondering why she cared which purse I carried. It's fine. This one works perfectly well. But Norma, she pressed, wouldn't you be more comfortable with your usual bag? The one with all your important things organized just how you like them? Tommy's fork clattered against his plate, making us all look at him. His face had gone even paler, and his hands were shaking slightly. Can I be excused? He asked quietly. But you've barely eaten, Colin protested. I'm not really hungry. Nonsense, Brixton said, her voice sharp for the first time that evening. You need to finish your dinner. We're family, and families eat together. The way she said family made something twist in my chest. There was possessiveness in it, ownership, as if she was marking her territory. Tommy sank back into his chair, but I noticed he kept glancing at me with those worried eyes. Actually, I said, standing up, I think I will go get my other purse. Brixton's right, it is better organized. Oh, wonderful, Brixton beamed. I'll come help you find it. That's not necessary, I said quickly, but she was already rising from her chair. I insist. Besides, I'd love to see your bedroom again. You've redecorated since last time, haven't you? I hadn't redecorated in 3 years, not since my husband died and left me rattling around in this big house alone. But I didn't correct her. Instead, I headed for the stairs, acutely aware of Brixton following close behind me, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. My bedroom felt smaller with her in it, her presence somehow filling all the available space. She wandered around, touching things, picking up the framed photo of my late husband and me on our 25th wedding anniversary. Such a lovely picture, she murmured. You two were so happy together. It must be lonely now, rattling around in this big house all by yourself. I found my black purse in the closet and turned to face her. I managed just fine. Oh, I'm sure you do. You're such a strong woman, Norma. So independent. Though at your age, it might be nice to have family closer. Have you ever thought about downsizing? Moving somewhere smaller, more manageable? The suggestion hit like a slap. Move out of the house my husband and I had shared for 30 years? The house where Colin had taken his first steps? Where we'd celebrated every Christmas and birthday? This is my home, Brixton. Of course it is, she said quickly, but I caught something calculating in her expression. I just meant that maintaining such a large property must be exhausting and expensive, and I clutched the purse handle tighter. I'm not ready to leave my home. No, of course not. I was just thinking out loud. She smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. Should we head back downstairs? The boys will wonder what happened to us. As we walked back to the dining room, I felt like I was missing something important, some crucial piece of a puzzle I didn't even know I was supposed to be solving. Tommy was still sitting exactly where we'd left him, but now he was drawing frantically in his sketch pad, his pencil moving in quick, nervous strokes. "What are you drawing, sweetheart?" I asked as I sat back down. He looked up, his eyes wide and serious. "Just stuff," he mumbled, closing the pad quickly. "Tommy's quite the artist," Brixton said, reaching across the table to ruffle his hair. He flinched away from her touch. "Always scribbling away in that little book. Sometimes I wonder what goes on in that head of his." The rest of dinner passed in a blur of forced conversation and growing unease. Brixton kept steering the conversation back to my house, my finances, my plans for the future. She asked about my will, about whether I'd updated it recently, about what I planned to do with my mother's jewelry. Each question felt like a probe, searching for something I couldn't identify. Colin, oblivious as always, talked about his latest architectural project, a modern office building that was giving him headaches. He seemed genuinely unaware of the undercurrents swirling around our family dinner, lost in his own world of blueprints and building codes. As I served dessert, my mother's famous apple pie recipe, Tommy suddenly stood up from his chair. "Grandma, can I show you something in the kitchen?" "What is it, honey?" "Just something," he said urgently. "Please." I followed him into the kitchen, leaving Colin and Brixton at the table. Tommy immediately went to the window, pretending to look out at my rose garden while his parents' voices drifted in from the dining room. "Tommy, what's wrong?" I asked softly. "You've been acting strange all evening." He turned to face me, and I saw tears gathering in his eyes. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it, glancing nervously toward the dining room. Then he did something that made my heart stop. He stepped close to me and whispered so quietly I almost missed it. "Grandma, Mommy put the diamond necklace in your purse to call the police." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at my grandson's frightened face, my mind struggling to process what he'd just said. "What?" "The diamond necklace," he whispered even more quietly. "Mommy took it from your jewelry box when you were downstairs. She put it in your black purse. She's going to say you stole it and call the police. I heard her talking on the phone." My legs suddenly felt weak, and I had to grip the kitchen counter to stay upright. My own daughter-in-law was trying to frame me. The necklace, my mother's precious necklace that I'd treasured for 30 years, was being used as a weapon against me. "Are you sure?" I whispered back. Tommy nodded, tears now flowing freely down his cheeks. "She said you were getting too old, and someone needed to make decisions for you. She said once you were arrested, Dad would have to take care of everything." The pieces of the evening suddenly fell into place with horrifying clarity. Brixton's strange behavior, her insistence on me using my black purse, her questions about my house and finances. She wasn't just trying to get me arrested. She was trying to make me look incompetent, senile, unfit to manage my own affairs. And if that happened, Colin would step in. Sweet, trusting Colin who believed everything his wife told him. He'd take over my finances, my decisions, my life. and Brixton would be pulling all the strings from behind the scenes. I looked down at my grandson's tear-stained face and felt something fierce and protective rise in my chest. This child had risked his mother's wrath to warn me, had been carrying this terrible secret all evening. How long had he been living with this fear? How many other schemes had he witnessed? "Thank you for telling me, Tommy," I whispered, pulling him into a gentle hug. "You were very brave." "What are we going to do, Grandma?" I held him for a moment longer, my mind racing. Then I pulled back and looked into his eyes with new determination. "We're going to turn the tables, sweetheart. Sometimes the best way to catch someone in a trap is to let them think it's working." My hands trembled as I reached into my black purse, feeling around until my fingers closed around something cold and hard. There it was, nestled between my wallet and reading glasses, my mother's diamond necklace. The weight of it in my palm felt heavier than usual, not because of the stones, but because of what it represented. Betrayal, calculated cruelty, a trap designed to destroy everything I'd worked for in my 63 years of life. Tommy watched me with those serious dark eyes as I carefully lifted the necklace from my purse. Even in the kitchen's soft light, the diamonds caught the gleam and threw tiny rainbows across the white cabinets. This piece had been in our family for 4 generations, passed from mother to daughter, each woman treasuring it as a symbol of love and continuity. Now it was being used as a weapon. "How did you find out?" I whispered to Tommy, keeping my voice low enough that Colin and Brixton wouldn't hear us from the dining room. "I was getting my art supplies from the hall closet," he whispered back, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. "I heard Mommy on the phone in your bedroom. She was talking to someone about how this would solve everything, how you'd finally be out of the way." Out of the way. The words hit me like ice water. I wasn't just an obstacle to Brixton. I was something to be removed entirely. I thought about all the little comments over the years, the suggestions that I was getting forgetful, that I shouldn't be living alone in such a big house, that I needed help managing my affairs. She'd been building a case against me for years, gathering ammunition for this moment. "Did she see you listening?" I asked. "No, I was really quiet. But Grandma, she said other things too." Tommy's voice broke slightly. "She said once the police arrested you, she'd make sure you went somewhere where you couldn't cause any more trouble. She said Dad would sign the papers because he'd think it was best for you." My blood ran cold. She wasn't just planning to have me arrested. She was planning to have me committed, declared incompetent, locked away somewhere while she and Colin took over my house, my money, my life. And knowing my son's trusting nature, he'd probably believe it was all for my own good. I wrapped my arm around Tommy's thin shoulders, feeling the tremor that ran through his small frame. This child had been living with this knowledge, carrying this terrible secret. How many nights had he lain awake worrying about what would happen to his grandmother? How many times had he wanted to tell someone but been too afraid? "You've been so brave, sweetheart," I murmured. "But now we need to be smart, too." From the dining room, I could hear Brixton's laugh, bright and artificial. She was probably checking her phone, waiting for whatever signal would bring her plan into motion. The police wouldn't just show up randomly. Someone would have to call them. Someone would have to report a theft. I looked down at the necklace in my hand, then at my grandson's worried face. An idea began forming in my mind, risky, but potentially brilliant. If Brixton wanted to play games, I'd show her what happened when you underestimated a retired schoolteacher who dealt with manipulative teenagers for 30 years. "Tommy, I need you to go back to the table and act normal," I said quietly. "Can you do that for Grandma?" He nodded, though his eyes were still wide with fear. "What are you going to do?" Something your mommy won't expect." I gave him what I hoped was a reassuring smile. "Trust me, okay?" After Tommy returned to the dining room, I stood in my kitchen for a moment, gathering my courage. The familiar space felt different now, charged with new purpose. The blue ceramic tiles my husband had installed 20 years ago, the white cabinets I'd painted myself, the window overlooking the rose garden we'd planted together. All of it suddenly felt precious in a way it hadn't before. This was my home, my sanctuary, and I'd be damned if I'd let someone take it from me without a fight. I slipped the necklace into my cardigan pocket and walked back to join my family. Brixton looked up as I entered, her smile so bright it could have powered the chandelier. "There you are," she said. "We were just wondering what happened to you two." "Tommy was showing me his latest drawing," I replied smoothly, settling back into my chair. "He's getting quite talented." "Oh, he certainly is," Brixton agreed, but her eyes were on my purse, now sitting beside my chair. I could practically see the gears turning in her head, wondering if I'd discovered her little surprise yet. Colin was finishing his second piece of apple pie, completely oblivious to the tension crackling between the women at his table. "Mom, this pie is incredible as always. I swear you could have been a professional baker." "Your father always said the same thing," I replied, but my attention was focused on Brixton. She kept checking her phone, her fingers dancing nervously on the table's surface. Whatever she was waiting for, it was supposed to happen soon. "You know, Norma," Brixton said suddenly, "I was thinking about what we discussed upstairs. About the house, I mean. Have you given any more thought to maybe getting some help around here? Someone to assist with the daily tasks?" There it was again, the suggestion that I was incapable of taking care of myself. "I manage perfectly well, thank you." "Oh, I'm sure you do. But accidents happen, especially to people living alone. Just last week, my friend Margaret's mother fell in her bathroom and wasn't found for hours. She could have died. The implication was clear. I was a danger to myself, a woman too old and frail to live independently. It was exactly the kind of narrative that would make sense to police officers when they found stolen jewelry in my possession. Poor old lady, losing her memory, maybe taking things that don't belong to her. "I'm very careful," I said evenly. "Of course you are. But sometimes being careful isn't enough." Brixton's phone buzzed, and she glanced at it quickly. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Sometimes we need other people to look out for us." Tommy had gone completely still beside me, his fork suspended halfway to his mouth. He knew something was about to happen, and the poor child was terrified. I reached over and patted his hand gently, trying to offer what comfort I could. "Speaking of looking out for people," Colin said, setting down his fork, "Brixton and I have been talking about having you over for dinner more often. Maybe even having you stay with us sometimes, especially during the winter months when the roads can be dangerous." My heart sank. They'd been discussing my future, making plans for my life without consulting me. How long had these conversations been going on? How many times had they sat in their sterile modern house, deciding